I do believe we're live. And as you may have seen in the chat, it's been a rough time trying to get here. I am off to London tomorrow for Fancy Football Fest on the Friday, Saturday, back up Sunday. I'm sure none of you really care about that. What is this video about? FPL Game Week 1 is about to launch. Very exciting. In this video, I'm going to talk about the predictor sites. There's a number of sites out there that predict what scores players are going to get. How good are they? Should we use them? What's the point of them? And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the value of the template, what the current template is. I'm going to show you my team. And then I'm going to do a Marmite section. Some people really appreciate it. Some people hate it. And it's where I waffle on about a whole load of players that you may want to have. So after the event, feel free to leave in the comments, yeah, you hate that part, you have to cut it out, or I appreciate it, thanks for the benching order, or whatever you like. So I'm assuming the sound's going to be okay. Yeah, thank you. No one said the sound's okay. I hope the sound is okay. I'm assuming it is. So I'm gonna actually wait a few seconds because I know I've had some issues. Oh, I'm not sure. I don't even know if this is actually live. After saying all that. Okay, I think it's live. No one's watching apparently, but I think it's live. Oh, okay, I've got a sound is good. Thank you. YouTube's going to hate the beginning of this video. They'll be like, there's no content there. At the end of the video later today, I'll put in an index so you can just skip to the parts you might be interested in. Right. Predictor sites. There are a number of predictor sites out there. I'm signed up to quite a few because I like to see what they think. How good are they? I spent a while looking around. Has anybody actually benchmarked them? And I couldn't find anyone. So last season, for a number of these sites that predict the score, for each game week, I took any player that was at least 20% owned, and I took a note of what the predicted score was, then after the event, what the actual score was to see how close they were. So I will show you that now. So the way it works, there are two different ways of recording the score. First off, I'm going to talk about the absolute difference. So an example here, we have João Pedro, we have Haaland. Supposing the predictor site says, oh yeah, they're both going to score 5 points this week. Actually, João Pedro scores 8 and Haaland scored 2. Then looking at the absolute difference, they were wrong by 3 points on both occasions. So although the prediction for the pair was 10 and the actual score was 10, they were actually out by 6. Now this matters if you're looking to bring in one player and you want to know short term, how good are they going to be? It matters how close this score is. You don't care about on average over a long number of weeks because you just want to know about now. So this is a bit of short termism here. So Scout were the best. Fancy Football Scout, on average, each player each week, they were wrong by 2.719 points. So I'll call that 2.7. Then it was Solio at 2.7. Then it was FPL Review, which I know is very popular, at 2.7. Then it was the average. The average is simply all the information I gathered. I then averaged it to see how good is the average compared to the rest. Then it was the Fancy tool. Fancy Football Pundit, so it was 2.8. Fancy tool was 2.8. 2.8 was also FPL Game Week. Marcelo, who you can get to him on X, 2.9. And then Fancy Football Hub, 2.9 as well. So before I did this last year, I had noticed that Hub's predictions on average were higher than Scout's. And I did feel that Scout was a little bit closer than Hub. But I'm not affiliated with either. I'm just saying that's the way it was. Now, something a bit naughty here. It looks like Scout are much better than Hub. The naughty thing is I've started this chart at 2.6. If I start it at 0, you'll see actually they're all much of a muchness. If you go for Scout or you go for Hub or any of the others, when it comes to the predictions, doesn't matter at all. So what is the point of all this? The reason to go for a predictor site is if you're torn between two players. Supposing you've got Mbeumo and Kuna, you're going to get one of them. They're both 8 million. They're both Man United, so the fixtures are the same. Which one should you get? And you really can't decide. That is the time to go to the predictor site. I got something in my eye. That's not good. That's the time to go to the predictor site and you find out maybe Mbeumo's going to get half a point more or Kuna, whichever way it is. And that may help you to decide, oh yeah, I feel comfortable with that. And you go with it. The time I think not to use it is when you're like, I don't know what to fill in these last two players, and you look at the predictor site and you just blindly put in who you think they're going to get a good, who they think is going to get a good score, because they sometimes have some really bizarre scores against players and they just don't get it. That's just me from having looked at all these things. So that's the absolute difference. Now, if we look at the signed difference, so what that means is they're both predicted 5 points. Do the predictor sites only cover the next game? No, the predictor sites, if I just go back to this list here, a lot of the sites show the next several games. So I think if you're not signed up, you haven't given them money, I think Hub, you can see maybe 3. I think Scout, the best one, I think you have to give them money to even see any scores, but I could be wrong. Solio, for free, you can get, I think, up to 5 weeks. Review, you can see about 5 weeks. I think the Fantasy Tool, you can see nothing unless you give them money. FPL Pundit is free. That's several weeks worth. Game Week, I think Game Week might show the whole season, but they're not there for Game Week 1. You have to wait for Game Week 2 for FPL Game Week to show you the stuff. And Marcelo, I think, well, he's ad hoc, but he does a fair bit there. So looking at the sign difference, prediction was 5 each. João Pedro got 8, Haaland got 2. João Pedro got 3 more and Haaland got 3 fewer. So in total, if you chose those two players and you went by the prediction, say they were bang on the money. They said that pair would get 10 and they did get 10. So you're happy with that. And the numbers are slightly different when we compare this way. And this is probably the more useful way for most people. I think to use a predictor, if you're happy to say I'm going to have this player for at least 5 game weeks, then a predictor is okay to give you a pretty good idea who's going to do better. Now, Hub was still the worst. On average, they were 0.544 points above what the player actually got. And at the end of the season, I did contact them and say, look, just so you know, if all your predictions were half a point lower, you'd actually be very, very good on average of your predictions. Next best was Fantasy Football Pundit, but they're completely free as far as I could see. Nice little site. Marcelo was 0.3 too high. FPL Game Week 0.257 too high. So the average was 0.18. Fantasy Tool 0.14. Scout 0.116. So on average, and this is over hundreds of data points over the season, they were only 0.116 too high, which is pretty darn good. And then FPL Review, who loads of people rave about, or they talk about it online, 0.019. And then Solio, and I had to check this and it is right, 0.002, which is ridiculous. So I still go back to what I said earlier. Use the predictor sites if you're stuck between which player to buy. Now, some people do just blindly follow these. Whatever Solio or Review say, that's the team I'm going to do. And they will probably finish in the top 200,000, which will win a lot of mini leagues. That is quite good. I think it's limited fun, though. Oh, I think I'm going to zoom out here now. Bang, there we go. Now, there are some people like Marcelo, and there's someone called FPL Benchwarmers, I think it is, I follow on YouTube. And he'll have an hour video where he's got an Excel chart. He's done his own calculations. And I think that's the most fun. So if I wanted to do all this predictor stuff, I would do my own system and go by what my system was saying. But the downside of that is that's many hours work and you're probably going to be pretty much the same as the rest. Because if you look at any game week, pretty much each player is very similar one to the other. There's not that much in it. So that's the predictor one. Now, when it comes to the template, a good way to get a good score is try and follow the template. By template, I mean the highly owned players, specifically the highly owned players around your rank. So if I was ranked at 1 million halfway through the season, I don't care what people at 2 and 3 million are doing, and I don't care what people in the top 10,000 are doing, because I'm not competing with them. I'm competing with those around the 1 million mark. And there are several sites, for example, FPL Game Week, and I think it's Live FPL, you can see who the players are around you. I've written my own API to get all the data myself for my own use. So that's the template. Now, the advantage of going for the template players is it's the template players that you don't own that do well that are going to hurt your rank. If a player that's very lowly owned does well, nobody cares. I don't care anyway. You shouldn't care either. Now, if you have a lowly owned player that does well, that you do own them, that's very nice. But there's a handful. Suppose there's 15, 20 very template players, and there might be 600 that are not template. it's quite easy to decide which one or two template players you think aren't so good. It's very difficult for the 600 to say which ones are going to do well. So it's much, much easier to think about the template. So supposing it's Monday evening, game week 1's finished, and I think the last game's Fulham-Chelsea. Supposing it's 1-1, Fulham-Chelsea's just finished 1-1, you've got 60 points. Did you have a good game week? The answer is you don't know. You don't know if your 60 is good until you know how other people did. If the average was 65, you had a bad game week. If the average was 45, you had a good game week. So to know whether you had a good game week score or not, it's not the score, it's how you did compared to everyone else. The way to keep that safe is to follow the template. I'm going to whiz through the current template, but I am going to come back to this. Now, I am aware that you can't see my cursor when I show this screen. I need to do something about that. But for now, this is where we are. So I'm showing players that are at least 25% owned. Purple is forwards. So Haaland is 70% owned. And João Pedro's down here at 60% owned. They're the only two at least 60% owned. And this is globally. At the moment, we've all got the same rank. There's nobody between 50 and 60. Between 40 and 50, we have Fernandez just below the 50, and we have Szoboszlai just above the 40. And then we have Raya down at 34, and Bremo 31, and this will seem relevant in a minute, honest. Gabriel and Calafiore globally are both just below 30%. Now, with the engaged managers online and the YouTube creators, Calafiore, I think, is probably well above 50% owned, and Gabriel's probably below 10% owned. But globally, that's where they're sitting. Then we have the third forward here, Calvert-Lewin. He's at 27. Then we've got Rodgers and Semenyo at 26. So the first few weeks we've had building up to this, people have been publishing their drafts. They've had this player, that player. They're fretting about things. None of this matters. Game week 1 is the one where you just want to go crazy and think, who do I want in my team? Just pick the players you like. And then over the next few game weeks, you can correct it. Who knows, you might be right. And the reason I'm saying that, if I go and now look at last season, this is game week 1 last season. See how many of these you recognize. So 55% of people had Salah. 56 had Palmer in game week 1, and he was 10.5 million. João Pedro was 54. And I think people were a bit worried about him because they just had, I think, the Club World Cup. And then Wirtz, new to the league, but did very well last season. So let's all pile in on Wirtz. He was nearly 34% owned. Wan-Bissaka, 4.5 million, gone to West Ham. Oh, he's going to be first choice. He'll get some clean sheets. He's nice and attacking. 30% of owners had him. Frimpong, new to the division, 28.4%. Everyone thought he was brilliant. Let's get him at Liverpool. Best thing ever. Okay, Dubravka, 4 million, but he was a playing goalkeeper. And then we've got Gyökeres at 25.5%. This is game week 1. And on top of this, engaged managers, loads of buying Villa players, Watkins and Rodgers, because they were like, oh, they're brilliant, you'd have them. And a lot of people were buying Forest players. Now, I didn't go for the Villa player because I was less convinced. They were awful to start with, and after a few game weeks, they dumped them. And they didn't mention them for weeks after that. Nottingham Forest were also poor. I did buy a couple of Forest defenders. I had to offload them. So this is game week 1. And by game week 6, the reason I've chosen game week 6, as I know this season quite a few people are going to wildcard game week 6. João Pedro's now up to 77. Who's this second highest at 60-something? Semenyo. He wasn't even being talked about in game week 1, and now he's very template. Everyone has to have him. Salah, 56, but after this he started fading. Haaland wasn't in the original template. Now he's owned by more than half the managers. Reinders, he had a good start. He's up to 48%. Nobody had him. Van der Ven, Kudos, Pedro Porro, 3 Spurs players, all in the template, quite highly owned. They weren't in game week 1. Electric Steve because he was bench fodder, and down here Chris Wood because he started doing quite well. So from the first game week, we lost Palmer. João Pedro stayed in there. We lost Wirtz. We lost Gyökeres. We lost Frimpong. We lost Wan-Bissaka. Dubravka doesn't really matter. He was just on people's benches. So with that in mind, we just need to be aware when we look at this season and see that Haaland's 70% owned, maybe by game week 6, he's just not been up to it and he's out of there. Joe Pedro may be brilliant. Joe Pedro may be brilliant. He may be out of there. What have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got maybe 12 players on the screen just now, maybe 11. By game week 6, half of these will be fallen out. And you'll be thinking, why did I spend so long fretting about it? So, hope you're well from Fogo. Hi, Oscar. Thanks for popping by. Yeah, I'm doing all right, and I'll be in London in a couple of days for the fest. So, Haaland, absolutely, you should own him. Now, we've got a problem. We've got Haaland at 15.5, and we've got Fernandes at 50. Sorry, Fernandes is 12 million, Haaland is 15.5 million. If you have those two, and many managers do have those two, and that is the sensible thing to do, when you look at your starting 11, your 11th player is not going to be very strong because you've just got your money tied up. So if you want to go with just one of those, that's okay. You shouldn't go with neither of those. That's okay. You might be having fun, but it is a bit daft. The safe thing is absolutely get those two. And João Pedro at 7.5 million, you should definitely get him. If you want to lose one of Fernandes or Haaland, personally, I think Fernandes is the safe one to not have because Haaland is so highly owned. Even though Fernandes' first 2 game weeks in particular are good, some people are booking in a transfer. So they're starting with Haaland, then starting with Fernandes. Game week 3 or 4, they're going to bring in Palmer. Let's say if Palmer does do well. But you're already booking in a transfer. That's 4 points. So whatever Fernandes scores in the first 2 game week, you kind of got to take off 4 points because you've already booked in a transfer. So Szoboszlai, personally, I think at 7 million, he's worth having. He's just going to be ticking along, getting points probably. Raya's probably the best keeper, but at 6 million, it's difficult to get him. When you set your team up, if you've not done it yet, it's possible you've not. It is difficult to get him. Not impossible. I've had him in many of my drafts, but it's quite difficult. Now, the cheapest keeper is 4 million. They're not playing, but they're 4 million. Raya is 2 million more than the cheapest, and someone like Kinski or Verbruggen at 4.5 million, only 500,000 cheaper. So from a certain viewpoint, Raya is 4 times more expensive than Kinski or Verbruggen. So unless you're swimming in money, I don't think you should be going for Raya, but he is a good keeper. And then Mbeumo at 30%, this is globally owned. I don't particularly care for him, but I don't have any Man United players. I'm going to show you my squad shortly. I understand why people are going for him. He may be very good the first 2 game weeks, but I think there's a bit of a risk around him. I wouldn't go for him or Cunha unless maybe I was wildcard in game week 3 or 4. But I don't think it's a good idea to use a wildcard early. Who knows what's going to happen? I looked recently, a couple of weeks ago, and I think in the last 7 seasons, twice before Christmas, games have been postponed because of the weather, which then means you're certainly going to have a blank and you may get a double in the first 19 game weeks. So 2 out of 7, that's a 28% chance. So if things carry on, we've got a 28% chance of having a postponed game before Christmas. Why would you burn your free hit and wildcard early? Because it's fun, that's why. But I'd like to be a bit more careful, so I'm hoping to not burn them early. Then defenders, Gabriel and Calafiore. I suspect over the season, Gabriel would be the better choice. But he's 8 million. Calafiore at 5.5, he's the better choice. If you want to get both, you can afford them, that's fine. If you can only afford one, possibly Calafiore. But he tends to get subbed at least pre-season, charity shield, around the 60-minute mark. If he comes off at 59 or before, you don't get the clean sheet if they're on a clean sheet. If he comes off at 60 or after, you do. So you are running a clean sheet risk if you go for him. Somebody like Ben White, for example, same price, he's more likely to stay on for the 90 minutes. He has got some attacking potential. So Calafiore is a bit of a risk, but he is very attacking. And if he's on after the 60-point mark, that's very nice. This is elite data. Thank you very much. That's from Brussels. I should put my glasses on. Somebody actually suggested, I'll say this in a minute. That was from Brussels Banana, I think, 0. Thank you very much. Someone suggested to me last week I should ask people to put their name. If your name's something that I'm going to struggle to say because it's a load of characters and numbers, feel free to start your chat with your name. For example, Bob. Hopefully you'll know your name. But if I can read what your name is, then that's fine. Right, I need to try and remember where I was now. I wasn't there. Oh, I was talking about the players. There we go. I was here. That's where I was. Yeah. So I think I'm ADHD. You probably guessed that by now anyway. So, yeah, of the Arsenal players, Calafiori's a little bit risky, a little bit dodgy, but he would be a lot of fun. So Calvert-Lewin, 27%. So the template front three, absolutely very good idea to go for this. It's Calvert-Lewin, João Pedro, Haaland, very, very affordable. So if you're wondering who you should have in your team, have those three. Have Szoboszlai because he's only 7 million. I would suggest you go with Calafiori or another Arsenal defender at 5.5 million. Then there's Rodgers and Semenyo. If you can stretch to Semenyo, I think he's good. It's going to be hard to have Semenyo and Bruno and Haaland, though. Not impossible, but you're going to have a very cheap defence. Rodgers may well be very good. Chelsea, I think, are going to have a good season. And he is quite highly owned. He's been in some of my drafts, as has Semenyo. So the reason I'm showing this and spending a bit of time on these players is any player apart from these really doesn't matter. If you can get 11 players out that are going to get good minutes, that's good enough. And over the next coming game weeks, we'll start seeing who is really good. There's going to be a lot more than this number of players that are 25% owned, and we can work our teams out. It's risky to go for somebody who's new to the Premier League, as we saw with Frimpong, as we've seen Darwin Núñez a few years ago. Him and Haaland start at the same time. Now, Haaland's the exception to the rule. He hit the ground running. But as a general rule, you're taking a risk if you take somebody that's new to the league. Somebody swapping clubs, that's not as bad. They're a lot more safe. Now, I'm going to show you, I think, my team now, if I can find it. Where did I hide my team? It was here. Imagine if I was organised, how dangerous I'd be. So my team, as things stand, now that we've established the template, what am I doing about the template? Starting with the bench, these don't matter that much. I've got a 4 million goalie who's not going to play. Wally up front, he might get a few minutes, not expect anything from him. Then Slater and Crooks, 4.5 million. This is the cheapest goalkeeper, forward and midfielders that I can get. So from this, you may have seen that I'm doing a 5-3-2 formation. Hopefully none of these will come on. I have no intention of bench boosting early. I understand why people are bench boosting 1 or 2. I did a video on why I'm not doing it. It's completely not for me, but I do understand why people are doing it. So I have got, as I said, 5-3-2. Almost certainly Haaland is captain. Unless we hear he's not going to start, he's going to be the most captained. He is the safest one to captain at home to Bournemouth. And I've got his two mates, Semenyo and O'Reilly. Happy with that. I know they didn't do well in the Charity Shield, but I think a couple of years ago, they were poor in the Charity Shield. And then the next few games, they were just brilliant. It was a one-off game, don't care. Then I've got João Pedro. He's my other forward, of course, away to Fulham. Great. I have 2 Arsenal defenders, Gabriel and Calafiori. Currently, Gabriel's the vice-captain, but I'm expecting Haaland to play. Home to Coventry, hopefully they get a clean sheet there. My plan is to keep this 11 for quite a while. I've not got any transfers booked in, but if I need to make transfers, I will. If I need to wildcard early, I will. Then from Liverpool, Virgil van Dijk and Szoboszlai. Okay, away to Newcastle. Newcastle in a bit of a flux situation at the moment. Lost some key players, new manager. But historically, Newcastle-Liverpool games can be very high scoring. So Virgil van Dijk may well not get a clean sheet. But again, those 2 players I can potentially hold for weeks. So they're okay. Then I have 2 Forest players. I have Williams and Gibbs-White. Gibbs-White hasn't been in many teams that I've seen, understandably. 8 million, very expensive. But he could be averaging 4.5, 5.5 points a week. He can just sit there and then tick along. And I've got Kinski in goal. I'm happy with him. I'm expecting Spurs to have a good season or a very good season. 4.5 million, I think he's probably underpriced. So that's my team. That's where I'm at. So now for the not Bob, okay, it's a good name. That is some defence, yeah. I've gone a little bit heavy on defence. So if there are no clean sheets any game week, that's a bit rough for me. Let's see what happens. Like I said, maybe by game week 4 or 5, I'll be tearing this up and doing something different. But hopefully I'll be okay. I need to accept Bruno may get between 7 and 15 points game week 1 and the same game week 2. I've just got to hold my nerve and just do nothing. Obviously, If Haaland got injured, then I'd have to swap things around. But that's where I am at the moment. So now I'm going to switch to the Marmite section, as I've called it. So when I started this series, this is my 5th season doing this. The YouTube channel was aimed at people that wanted to play FPL but didn't really know anything about football. And I was just going to show them a number of players. The idea being you can buy any of these players and you'll do all right in your mini league, top 5%, something like that. Some people really like that and appreciate it. Some people absolutely hate it and say, don't go through so many players. And I understand both viewpoints. So at least for game week 1, I need to do a halfway house. So I'm now going to show a load of players. And you, unless I say otherwise, you can more or less buy any of these and you'll probably be all right. We won't know for several game weeks who the really good players are, who we need to have. So for now, just get players that are going to play. No, Bruno is very bold, says Hazmul Patel. Yes, it is, and it isn't. It is Man United. So last season, Man United were good, but they had no Europe. They managed to get knocked out of the Cups very quickly. They played, was it 40 games in the season? This year, again, a few game weeks' time, they do have Europe. They are still in all the Cups. Going back a few years, Man United did get off to slow starts. They may be a bit better. 12 million. The main reason is his price. If he was 8 million, I'd have him. 10 million, I'd probably have him. 12 million, no plans to captain him. Bruno's just not worth it for me. So this part, I understand if people want to go now, but some people like this. So let's see where we're at. We're not there. Oh, if only I knew what I was doing. Right, here we go. Now, I need to change my screen layout. I'll probably do it in game weeks 5 and 6. So I know this looks a bit silly just now, but I had to butcher what I had last year to fit it into here. So goalkeepers, Raya and Kinski, I think they're the best 2 keepers. If you're splashing around in cash, you can get Raya. Otherwise, Kinski's all right. Lamon's 5 million. Now, I wouldn't go there because I don't particularly trust the Man United defence. And if I really liked Man United, I would go for 3 outfield players. I wouldn't waste one of the spots on Lamon's. But if you want him for 5 million, that's okay. For Bruggen, 4.5, a lot of bench boosters. Actually, all bench boosters that I've seen that have posted their teams, bench boosting game 1 week or 2, have Kinski and Verbruggen in goal. And you can switch them around as you need them. So I understand that. Donnarumma, 5.5. He might be okay. I would not get Donnarumma. I've marked him as orange, which means risky, because he takes up a Man City slot. If Man City hit the ground running, you're going to want 3 Man City players. You're going to want 3 outfield Man City players. You don't want to waste a Man City spot on Donnarumma. Recommend you don't get him. Pickford, as a keeper, I think he's my favourite keeper. 5.5. If you're splashing around in cash and you want different Arsenal players, I do actually quite like Pickford. And if all keepers were the same price, I'd have Ray as my first choice, then probably Pickford, just because I really like him. I wouldn't get Becker for the same reason as I wouldn't get Donnarumma. He takes up a Liverpool slot. You're going to want 3 Liverpool outfield players at some point. Trafford, he started at Man City. He's at 5 million, but he's now gone to Leeds. If he'd started at Leeds when the game launched, I suspect it'd be 4.5 million, and I'd probably buy him. But at the moment, money's very tight. Dubravka and Palmer, both 4 million. They're just bench fodder. Neither of them are going to start. I wouldn't buy Dubravka because he's quite highly owned, because a lot of managers saw he got a good score and have bought him, only 4 million. I think managers are going to realise he's not playing and sell him off, which means he could go down in value. So if you want a 4 million non-playing keeper, I'd suggest you get someone who's not Dubravka. Of course, you can do whatever you want. Why 5 defenders? They score better than mids. Okay, I think for defenders, it's easier to get defenders that will do well. So I should have had it prepared, shouldn't I? If you go to the FPL site and you look at last season's scores, the best score I think was probably, I'm going to guess, Haaland as a forward. There are some very good midfielders, but for the defenders, if you look at like maybe the 8th or 10th best defender, I think they're probably better than the 8th or 10th midfielder. I think it's easier to get defenders that are going to do well than midfielders. So what I showed you earlier, everyone was very excited about Rodgers beginning of last season, about Wirtz beginning of last season. They did nothing. At the beginning, they were just rubbish. Whereas if you'd gone for a defender, you'd have had more chance of getting decent points. It may completely not work. Of course, my team's going to develop over the weeks. But yeah, 5 expensive defenders, because I think it's going to be interesting at least. I think it's easier to get the defenders that are going to be doing all right. Absolutely. And I meant to be going quicker than this, so I'm sorry. I'll try and speed up a bit. Gabriel, 8 million. If you can afford him, I've got him. I can't say he's worth having, but if you structure your team such that you get him in, he's reasonable. Calafiori's probably good. Now, of course, when Europe starts, don't know if his time's going to change a bit when people come back from injury. We also have the issue of he comes off at 60 minutes, give or take a few minutes. So he is a bit risky, but they're absolutely good. O'Reilly, I wouldn't worry about the fact that they didn't have clean sheets at the weekend. That was against Arsenal. It was in London. I suspect O'Reilly's going to be fine. He's in my team. Luke Shaw, 4.5 million. I don't particularly trust Man United defence. He's only going to get you clean sheet points probably, and that's, of course, when they get clean sheets. But he's only 4.5 million. First two fixtures, fine. If you're wildcarding early or you're going to bench him some game weeks, he's all right. I've put Pedro Porro as risky simply because, as far as I know, we don't know he's going to start. But if he starts, I'd say he is a good choice. I suspect I'll have Pedro Porro before long. I like Virgil van Dijk. Maguire, so I know people much prefer Maguire to Shaw. He's got attacking capabilities there. He's 500,000 more. If you can afford Maguire, it looks like he's a better choice than Shaw. First couple of fixtures are fine. Mosquera, another Arsenal defender, fine at 5.5. I would get Gvardiol. I would be too nervous. We don't know yet who's playing where for what minutes with Man City. I quite like Maresca. He was brilliant at Leicester, the manager, but we need to see what's going to happen. But you could get any of these and they'd be right. That's the whole point of showing this. I like Williams. So any of these players I'm showing you, you can just fill your team with them. And I'll try and step it up a little bit. So Lacroix, Chelsea, it looks like people are expecting him to be playing. If he does, he may be quite good for DEFCON, but he's 6 million. Money's very tight. I wouldn't be getting him, but if you want him, you can. Diop, bench fodder, 4 million. He will play. Van Oyck's expected to play 4 million, but again, bench fodder. Now, personally, I wouldn't be buying 4 million defenders and then expect to be playing them. If I had a 4 million defender, I'd have them on my bench. If I was bench boosting, I'd go about Haaland or Fernandes and get 15 decent players. And I personally wouldn't be getting 4 million defenders. I'd get a decent team. Tarkowski, 6 million. Now, I've heard that some Everton fans reckon because he's getting on, he's going to be getting rested for some games. But we are at the beginning of the season, so he should be playing. And that was just what fans reckon. Maybe he's going to get 38 games. Van Heck for Spurs, he should be very good if he's playing, 5 million. I've put James as a punt. Now, he's very good. He actually played, I think, started in midfield last game. He's a punt simply because of he does seem to get injured sometimes and his minutes, etc. What we're going to do with him. But he's fun. I do really like Reece James when he's fit, etc. Thomas for Coventry, 4 million. Hume, 4.5 million. So I've heard people talking about Hume for Sunderland, and I think he's playing midfield on a wing. But I've also heard that in a few game weeks' time, he may not even be starting. But he's only 4.5. So if you're bench boosting game week 1 or 2, Hume's probably a good choice. If you want him to sit on your bench and hold him for a long time, that's probably okay, but he might be getting you 1 points often. So there's a Leeds defender. I'm going to try and say his name. Something like Miramovic. There you are. Probably said it wrong. I've put him down as a punt. He is a very good player. He's expected to play. He could get DEFCONs most weeks. He's going to get some attacking returns. But it's the whole Frimpong Darwin thing. He is new to the league. Any player that's new to the league, you are taking a risk. If I don't know, if I didn't have the 5 decent defenders I had, I would be tempted by him, but he is risky. And he's very lowly owned. So Solio reckon he's going to get 3.6 points this first game week. If you don't own him, he's going to do you minus 0.1 points of damage. He is not going to damage you. So you're taking a risk and you're just covering 0.1 points. So for me, it's not worth it. Now, none of these on the screen are going to hurt you if you don't own them. And O'Shea, another bench fodder boy there. A few more defenders. So Rodon, it looks like he's probably going to get good minutes. He's going to get some decent points. I think Leeds are definitely going to finish top half this season. Top 8, maybe. I think Leeds are a big team. Leeds should do well. I'm sure in a few game weeks' time, I'm going to have quite a few Leeds players. So Robertson, I've made him pink, even though he's been in the Premier League many seasons. he is at a new club and we can't be sure of his minutes, but with their injuries, if he is playing well over 60 minutes and playing every week, he's going to be a good player, I think. I'd be very happy to have him. 4.5 million Spurs, but for now he's a risk and he's not going to hurt you if you don't own him. So within the community, a lot of people, I know I call him a year, people call him Ager, I think, or Ager, something like that. 4.5 million Brentford. Now he's probably going to get decent points. He doesn't work for me because he takes up a defender slot. I've got 5 expensive defenders, but he may well be very good. Agen, 4 million. Any of those defenders you could get, you're going to be all right. The midfield, are we on midfield? Yeah. So Bruno, you're taking a big risk if you go without Bruno. I'm going without him. I'm taking a big risk, but it's just the way I'm going to be playing. If he was cheaper, I would definitely have him. You really should try and get him if you can. Szoboszlai is totally worth getting, only 7 million. Supposed to be going quicker. Embremo, 8 million. Even if you're the same price as Szoboszlai, I'd rather go Szoboszlai because those that are going Embremo are going to be moving him out. And if you're doing it with a transfer, you are booking in a 4-pointer effectively. Semenyo is very good, 8.5 million, but he's expensive. Rodgers, I think, would be very good. But he takes up a midfield slot. If I had infinite money in infinite midfield slots, well, look, I'd have everyone. If I had more money, I probably would have Rodgers, but I can't quite fit him in at the moment. Rice is all right, and Dyer's all right. He's not gone yet. If he stays at Everton, he should be good. Wirtz, people are very excited about Wirtz, and I think within the engaged community, he may be about as popular as Szoboszlai, maybe a bit more popular. He has been in the league for a season now, so he's pretty good at 7.5. I'd be comfortable having Wirtz, whereas last season it would have been a gamble. Another punt here. So Solis, I think his name is, Arsenal midfielder on the wing. Very good. If he plays good minutes, the chances are he's going to be very good. I wouldn't be surprised if in a few game weeks' time, all engaged managers have him. He's only 6.5 million. He's estimated to get 4.8 points, which is a damage of 0.8. So you don't need to fear him, but be aware in a week or two, people may be dumping Mbeumo, for example, or Rodgers and getting in Solis. I wouldn't get him just because he's new to the league, a little bit dodge. Then Gibbs White, I've got Gibbs White. I know he's possibly overpriced 8 million, but he should be a set and forget. He may only get 2 points for a couple of game weeks in a row, but he should get some 5s and 7s and 8s in there. I'm happy just to risk having a team of players that should just be playing. Again, any of these you can get, he says, bringing up Palmer. I totally wouldn't get Palmer. He's been pants. We know that he's good. He can be good, but recently he's not been. At 9.5 million, wouldn't get him. Let the first few game weeks go. If he's good after the first 3 games, then bring him in for Hull. That's absolutely fine. I'm sure I have heard some people booking in a transfer to sell Fernandes and bring in Palmer. Game week 4, that makes sense if he does well. Kuna for 8 million, and Bremer's more popular, but Kuna's a good player. If I had to buy one, I don't know. I might actually risk Kuna. I think Kuna's got more chance of scoring, but Mbremo's got more chance of getting good points. I may actually go for, forgot his name now, there's a midfielder. Just brought him in to replace Casemiro. I think he's 5 million. That's silly, I forgot his name. I'll probably get him, get lower points, but save the 3 million. People are very excited about Gross, 5.5 million. They are playing in, maybe playing in Europe tonight, actually. It's either tonight or tomorrow. He's all right, 5.5 million. I wouldn't get him, but he's fine. Enzo Lefebvre, another one, 6 million. I'm supposed to be running through you. Sorry, Anderson. Anderson would be good at 6.5. He has been in some of my drafts, but there are other players I'd rather have. I really like Bruno Guimaraes. I've put him down as a punt. We don't know what his minutes are going to be at Arsenal. He is a very good player. He has been in some of my drafts. I do really like him, 7 million. I got Gibbs White instead of him at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if in the near future, though, I bring him in. I've also had Wilson, who's moved to Leeds in some of my drafts. I really like him. But I decided I'd rather have Gibbs White, which you might think is crazy. But Gibbs White's minutes are more secure. He's just, I think, a safer pick for now. Some people like Sarr. So a lot of teams have lost their manager since the last few months, let's say. We don't know what Palace is going to be doing. Don't know what the manager is going to be like. I wouldn't go for Sarr. But if they start being okay, he's going to be fine. Odegaard, he has been good in seasons past, but there are plenty of other midfielders I'd rather have. I'm still talking too much. Sorry, Xhaka, 5.5 million. He's all right. I had him last season for many weeks. Had him from the start. He's a very solid pick. Okay, huge. 4.5 million bench fodder. He sits on your bench. If somebody doesn't play, he might get you a point if you're lucky. Dewsbury Hall's very good, of course. Sade's very good. People are excited about him. 6 million. Gomez, I wouldn't be so bothered about him. 5 million. I know some people are going for him, though. There's 2 Sangaris. The Brentford one, 5.5 million. New to the league. He's expected to be a DEFCON king. Yeah, that's right. And he could get you loads of points. He's very popular. But again, there's other midfielders I'd rather have. Slater, 4.5 million, sits on your bench, no problem there. Dango could be good, 6.5. Ampadu, I quite like Ampadu, but there are other midfielders I'd rather have. There's the other Sangari from Nottingham Forest. He's okay, 5 million. Crooks again, 4.5 million. This whole section, the point of this is for people who really don't know who to choose, just choose any of these. So forwards, Haaland, unless you're some sort of very crazy person or you've got a bet with a friend, you really should get Haaland. Even if he's only going to score low to start with, at least you're covered just in case it does very well. He's also going to be the most captained. João Pedro, there's no excuse not to have João Pedro. Unless you're Spurs fans that's refusing to get any Chelsea players, you should absolutely have him. If you're going 3 forwards, Calvert-Lewin's the safest one to get because of his ownership levels and what we expect him to do. I wouldn't get Isak. Even if I was going without Haaland, I wouldn't get Isak. He may do really well. I would be too nervous about his injuries. Now, his first game is away to Newcastle. That's going to be a bit spicy. I don't know if he's going to enjoy getting booed the whole time or every time he has the ball. If he's going to play better because of that, or if he's just going to run away crying, who knows. But I would rather have Thiago. Even if Thiago and Isak were both 8 million, I would probably still go Thiago because I think Thiago is much safer for minutes and staying injury-free. He's probably going to get a whole heap of goals. That'd be for me. But if you want to go Isak, that's absolutely fine. Robbie at only 6 million, he's quite popular. McBurney, probably the cheapest forward that's got a chance of doing anything, 5.5 million. But there are so many... Well, there are quite a few forwards you can get. I wouldn't be wasting a playing forward slot on McBurney. And if I was going to have him on my bench, I'd be getting a 4.5 million player like Wally. There you go, Wally. I'd be getting him instead. So this is now the benching order. Forgot where I was. So I'm going to quickly run through on this, try and be quick. The players I just showed you. The player I show first, that's the player I'll be playing before the next player. This is based on several variables. My preferred keeper order for what I've shown you would be Raya, Lamens, Pickford, Donnarumma, Verbruggen, Kinski, Becker, Trafford, Dubravka, Palmer. Last 2 don't matter. They're not going to play anyway. For the other players, I've put 6 aside to talk about for captaincy. Apart from that, this is my suggested benching order. You do whatever you like. It's just if you want a guide, this is what I reckon. Kuna, Szoboszlai, Palmer, Isak, Gibbs, White, Mosquera, Rice, Thiago, Calafiore, Ndiaye, Solis, Rogers, Wirtz, Bruno Guimaraes, Calvert-Lewin, Gross, Maguire. Now, you may be saying, why have you got Maguire the way down here? He's an attacking defender. He's away to Hull. He's got a good team. But I've only got 3 defenders on the screen here. So chances are if you've got Maguire, he's going to be one of your first 3 anyway. Luke Shaw, O'Reilly, Gvardiol, Pedro Porro, James Tarkowski, Enzo Lefebvre, Virgil van Dijk, Williams, Odegaard, Brobby, Anderson, Dewsbury Hall, Dango, Lacroix, Sarr, Sade, Wilson, Gomez, Van Heck, Sangari, the one that's playing against Spurs. That must be the Brentford one, I think. Yeah, the Brentford one. Zaka, Muhammaric, the Leeds defender, Hume, Azure, McBurney, Ampadu, O'Shea, Sangari, the other one from Forest, Rodon, Diop, and then Robertson, Egan, Slater, Thomas, Van Oyck, Crooks, Hughes, Wally. Now, I know that was a lot of players. I know it took a time to read out. And I know other content creators do show a benching order, but they show like 10 or 15 players. I've just shown you about 60. So hopefully that's going to be helpful if you're unsure. That's just my opinion, but I think it's all right. For the captaincy, Haaland, and I've already got my hat on from earlier. For me, he's the best choice for captain. He's the safest choice. It may well be Bruno, who's another good choice, is going to outscore him. His game away to Hull's probably easier than home to Bournemouth. But because Haaland's higher owned and probably going to be higher captain, he's the safer choice. Either of those is absolutely fine. Other choices for captain or vice captain, João Pedro away to Fulham. And then you got the fun, of course, it's the Monday night game. So if Haaland and Fernandes blank, that's exciting for you. But if they both return, that's a bit scary. You could go Mbeumo maybe as a vice captain. Gabriel's all right, and Semenyo would be all right. Any one of these as vice, any of these as captain, any as vice captain. Don't go for two from the same match. For example, don't go Haaland and Semenyo or Bruno and Mbeumo, just in case the game gets postponed or abandoned. I remember a few years ago I had Solanke when he was at Bournemouth. Not many people had him. He scored 2 goals, then the match got abandoned. And that was really annoying. Then, of course, he had a double game week and everyone bought him. So there we go. That's that. So, well, for anyone who's still around, thank you for hanging around. So anything in the chat here? Hi, Bob. Okay, I think I've probably read... I think I've read those out. So anyone who made it this far, thank you very much for staying. Looks like there are a few of you here. I hope you have a nice game week 1. I know this wasn't a great presentation. Realistically, I'm not going to be able to make it much better till game week 6 when I've got the 3-week window. I've got ideas what I want to do, but I've just not had time to put it together because I've got a bit of a crazy life at the moment. I'm off to Fest tomorrow. I'm going tomorrow. Fest is Friday, Saturday. I'm coming back Sunday. If you're at Fest and you see me, please do come over and say hello. I hope you have great stuff. Oh, thank you very much for saying that. That old bruised banana again. Thank you for bonus points for me. Still here. Okay. You Bullbeck. Would you choose Le Mans in goal? Personally, I would choose Kinski and save the 4.5 million. But if you want him as your keeper, that's okay. The thing with Le Mans is he's taking up a Man United spot. If United are really good, you may well want 3 Man United outfield players. If he was 4.5 million, he'd be a lot more tempting. But he's a perfect good. If you can afford to have him, he's okay. I would be tempted to spend 500,000 more if I had it and get Pickford, but that's just because I'm biased. I like Pickford. I've got Kinski. Actually, I will just show you for anyone who's coming a bit later. That is my team. It's been this for several days now. Unless you get news that any of these aren't playing, I think this is who I'll be launching for game week 1. Yeah, so United's, so we've just got here. United's opening 3 easy. Yes, so I'll say that again. If you're bench boosting in game week 1 or 2 and then looking to wildcard game week 3 or 4, then you can justify getting Le Mans, and that does make a lot more sense. I'd rather have him than Verbruggen, let's say. If you're going to wildcard early and shuffle your team around, then yeah, absolutely makes sense. Not a problem with that. But I don't think I'd risk him and then not be wildcarding earlier. Thoughts on Sarr? So nervous about any Crystal Palace player because it's a new manager. We know Glasner is very good, but of course they've lost a couple of players. So yeah, because he's Crystal Palace. If Glasner is still there and they've managed to keep hold of their entire squad, I'd say Sarr's a very good player. They may hit the ground running, they may be fine. I'm comfortable with Sarr, but he's not been in any of my drafts whatsoever. But yeah, I think he's absolutely fine. That's from Ersin Ahmad, that one. All right, he said. Oh, my voice is gone. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching. I suspect I'll be able to do another stream next Wednesday. I'll be looking at what happened in game week 1. I'll be showing my game week 2. And I'll probably be wildcarding because my 5 defenders probably won't work out at all. Okay, thank you very much for... Oh, what about Pascal Gross? He is solid. Lots of people are choosing him. There's a little bit of nervousness about there in Europe before game week 1 and after game week 1, before game week 2. I don't think that would worry me too much. My reason for not going with Gross is I can find other midfielders that I'd rather have. But it's probably on pens, on some set pieces. He's a completely solid choice. He's one of these players like Gibbs White, but he's a lot cheaper. You can just have in your team, play every week. He should be safe. He ticks along nicely. So I think he's fine. Okay, I heard about the new striker. I've not seen who it is. I have heard he's on pens. Okay, fair enough. Well, if he's playing, then Gross is off pens. But Gross is still going to be getting good minutes. He is only 5.5 million. I guess if they've got a new penalty taker, I should have looked that up. I did hear something about that. that does take some of the shine. But then some teams seem to get hardly ever any penalties. Brentford are very good at getting penalties. And of course, it's the way they play that get the penalties. So that's why I like Thiago. Brentford should be getting plenty of penalties. I've gone with Gvardiol, Calafiore, Mascara in defence. So if they all play and get good minutes, that is a very solid defence. I'd be very happy with that one. That was from Mohammed Days 4465. Mr. B-Stan, if Brighton plays Team B in Europa, which I thought they might do that, and Team A on Premier, and I'm sure the Premier League's more important, Gross could be good, right? But wait and see. Well, he's going to get the minutes, and I think the minutes are king at the moment. The template's just going to change so much. If Gross blanks the first 2-3 game weeks, everyone who's got him is going to dump him. He's only 5.5. He's not been in any of my... He's been in none of my drafts. I've never been tempted to get him, but I understand why people are getting him. He's not a huge risk. There are just other midfielders that I prefer to that. Szoboszlai, Bruno, Mbeumo, and Gross in midfield. So I like Szoboszlai. I like all of those. They're all fine. If United aren't brilliant the first 2 game weeks, then Bruno and Mbeumo, I guess you'd be selling, but there's plenty of good midfielders to get. If you're wildcarding in 3 or 4, probably 4, because you're bench boosting, then that's fine. There's always a risk. Like the players I've got, there's a risk that they're going to be no good after wildcard early. No, I like that midfield. That's fine. That's all good. Okay. I think I'm out here. I'm actually going to try and do some deadline streams, I think, this season, but obviously not this week because I'm not going to be around. Brilliant. Thank you very much for everyone who's watched. Have a fun, crazy time on Friday making decisions the last minute. I guess the site may go down sometimes when there's a big wildcard played or game week 1. Ridiculously, the servers crash right near the end. Hopefully they've paid for some money. They've put the 50p's in the meter and they're going to be all right. All right. Thank you very much. I'm off. Bye.